Jay's mother was in shock. I was in shock. The doctors were all in shock. It was something they'd never seen before.
I felt like they were just trying to off my son. So I noticed there was something wrong with Jay when he became really lethargic. There was a lot of water retention in his extremities. He became kind of the color of cement. And that's when I knew there was something wrong. But I had been taking him to the doctor for a month.
It was over and over and over again, and we were told everything's fine, nothing to worry about. But they kept increasing.
We found out about Jay's diagnosis through actually an infectious disease doctor named Martina Salvatore and a girl who was a resident at the time, Dr. Roberta Bedard.
When I first got there, I'd heard that one of the young interns who was examining Jay had found something in his abdomen, something that didn't feel right. So we went and had an ultrasound done. That's when we first got the scanned confirmation that there was tumors in the liver.
It felt like a house fell on top of me. I have no other way to describe it. It was the worst.
We had to go down what's called an echocardiogram. That's basically an ultrasound of the heart, which was confusing because we were under the impression that the tumor was in the liver. There was the cardiologist who was in the room. He was in the room while the scan was being done, and he was talking out loud. He was saying, you can see the tumor that's presenting in the upper right chamber of the heart.
I remember them taking him in the ambulance. And the sirens were going and the lights were going. And I had to say goodbye to Sydney. For forever long that was going to be. They had given Jay not a very good prognosis. We had to drive there.
We arrived and said, well, we have to go to CCU. I heard we have to go to CCU. We'll have to find out where that is. And a gentleman who was waiting at the elevator in the parking lot said,
can I help you? And I said, well, I'm looking for my son, Jay. And he goes, Jay Duke. And I said, yeah. He goes, I'm Dr. Capra. I'm going to be looking after your son. And I kind of took that as this sign. Because how weird that we would get to the hospital at the exact same time. And he was the one who said, the light at the tunnel is not bright, but it's enough.
When Dr. Fectu, who was the surgeon who did the liver resection, post-op, she came out and talked to Jay's mother and I and said that they resected the liver successfully, and they got clean margins, which means that all of the tissue surrounding where the cancer was cancer-free. And she said that everything went well. The heart was working fine. The blood flow was great. And all the margins were clean. So from that moment on, I knew that Jay was cancer-free. Jay was just a normal kid. He started following sports. He was active. We just thought everything was just going to be fine. Life was sailing along.
His blood work started being a little weird. It was different. Alpha beta proteins, which were a marker for a particular cancer, were elevated, and we couldn't figure out why.
The problem came from the Gore-Tex shunt that was done at the time of liver resection when Jay was 2 clotted, and that caused a backup of blood in the liver and then in the surrounding organs. So it was that backup of blood flow from the liver to the heart that caused the cirrhosis of the liver, and that's when we knew that transplant had to be done. The liver couldn't be saved.
We happened to be in the hospital at that point because Jay was having another procedure done. It was called banding.
Because of the back pressure from the liver, the blood vessels around the liver, in the esophagus, especially in the stomach area, were swelling. So they had to put bands of support around them so that they wouldn't burst.
And Jay had just had the procedure. Dr. Lim had told us we could go home tomorrow. And I saw Dr. Ganahar and his nurse practitioner, Maria, and they said, so Jay's not going home tomorrow. And I'm like, well, yes, he is. Dr. Lim said he could go home. And they're like, no, Jay's having a transplant tomorrow.
It was hard not having everyone home. It was hard when Jay was not with us, and we were really young, Cindy and I. I don't think we entirely understood what was going on.
Yes, I do remember saying something to him. I told him that under any circumstances, nothing was going to happen to him and that he was to come back. And he's like, Mom, I'll be back. Jay was always optimistic. He was always seemed to be able to just calm me down in that moment.
The length of time that Jay was in surgery felt like it just dragged. The minutes seemed like they were hours. It seemed like we were there for, it almost felt like 24 hours.
Seeing Jay after the surgery was amazing, though I think he was more excited to see, as equally excited to see me, because he held out his arms and he goes, Mom, Mom.
What I remember from Jay's recovery was he was in the CCU and he was already talking. He was awake before he should have been awake. He was talking to everybody way before he should have been talking to everybody. And he was looking for something to drink and something to eat way before he should have been looking for any of that. His recovery was always very quick, whether it was cancer, recovering from the cancer surgery, or recovering from the transplant. It was very, very quick.
When Jay came home, we were in the hallway in the house, and Jay, before the transplant, you could see like the bulging in his abdomen, and it was me, Jay, and Riley in the hallway, and all three of us had lifted up our shirts, and Jay was like, look guys, like my stomach looks like yours now, like we all have the same stomach now, because it actually looked like a normal stomach instead of just a protruding stomach.
I think his survival says that he's strong, he's courageous, he's brave, he's everything you would want a son to be.
There's always this speculation from the start of this whole process, way back when Jay was 2, that just hoping that he'd be able to grow up and go to school and live a life that he deserved to live. So that was big.
There were a lot of things that both cancer and transplant that could have gone very wrong, and even percentages were not in my favor most times. And I've come out of both events pretty much unscathed. It's crazy to think about how lucky I am. And I'm grateful for it. And I just don't try and take it for granted in any way, shape, or form. So I kind of just try and enjoy life the way I want to enjoy life.
What does his survival say about him? I always used to tell people that Jay's the toughest little son of a bitch you're ever gonna meet. And I believe that's true. Yeah. I always knew that he was going to be fine. And I just remember, when it was time to get something done, Jay put his game face on. He just did it.